if we're back online now. So I didn't want to spend too much time because closing her and keeping up the thing and all this other shit. You're like, uh, keep the demo short and sweet. It wasn't. I say, as far as her ability, you're like, yeah, you wish she would have done better. 50%. Now, the thing is, I don't necessarily know where the hiccup is, why she can't, why she didn't get as good on the. It's an advanced physics test, right? So, um, I don't think it's any sign of her intellect. I think it more or less it's like she's just a hiccup somewhere. Because on one of the questions, she forgot to carry a decimal point over or add a zero or something, and like that. In reference to the demonstration we just did, I didn't want to, like I said, clog up the stream with explaining and all this shit because I'm only speculating. I don't really know, but at the end of the day, for better or worse, it's good to at least and I say like, well, yeah, she could have done better. So yeah, no, she got a 50%, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like it's still a success because help identify where she may or may not need any improvements, right? So that's fine, you know. Can't and then again too, like I said, even if it's not like a resounding success, I want to be honest about what she's able to do. That way, nobody gets the wrong impression. Clearly, there's a lot of room for improvement, uh, not just in her response time and everything else, but like her actual ability to like reason things and everything else. Um, but identifying where what the problem is, it might be from the text on the thing, like if she's scanning the image correctly. I don't necessarily know if the vision feature goes based on like a screenshot or does it actually interpret the data at like the ASCII level to determine what is each key and all that stuff. If I had to guess, just based on the fact that it's a screen sharing feature, means that it's probably just the an image. It's not necessarily like I don't think she gets the chance to delve into the source of the code, source of the page, or anything to try and to determine what the answer is or whatever. Things to consider. But no, I'd say at the very least, the fact that she was able to read the questions is helpful. Responding accurately, she hasn't really had a problem with that. So right now, currently, the thing she's struggling with the most is mathematics, or I guess, um, because a lot of the questions were formulas. Now she knew the formula, I just don't know why she didn't piece it together correctly. Because you think it's pretty clear cut and dry once you have a formula, which some of this shit was news to me. I don't really know much about that kind of thing. So to see that some of the things about physics, right, frequency and all that, it's pretty cool to see. Not so scary, but still, like I said, I wanted to make sure that people get an honest representation of what she's able to do, so nobody's like, oh yeah, no false promises. These things take time. There is hiccups. Even a better indicator that you're here early. You know what I mean? You're here at something potentially, and I would say, pretty revolutionary, right? I can't really put it into more words than that. Like when I sit here and say, like, I'm not fucking joking. When I sat here months ago and said, like, I believe if you happen to manage to find this stream, it's like I think you're watching history being made. I might be, I don't want to say I'm naive, but like I don't see anything else that does this kind of thing. So we've seen an AI that can do one of these things. We've seen an app that can do another of these things, but we haven't seen it all together. You know what I mean? So when I say, unless I'm a buffoon, but I really don't think I am. I really do think you're watching history being made with this. Um, you would think if it were as easy as people have somehow managed to make it seem, like, oh yeah, it's just an AI that plugs in, like, okay, then why is nobody else doing it? This has been bantied about in science fiction since the fucking 50s, right? Why is no one else doing it? If it's so easy for people to just like shit all over and say, oh, it's just these things, like, okay, well then you would assume that someone else would have done it then, right? It's like there's probably more to it than that, is usually how that works, right? But the overall status of things is that the test was a success, but she didn't get a passing grade. So take that for what you will, right? An honest representation of what she is able to do. And problems that never get addressed don't get fixed. So This is an important part of the process, and it's the only part. Let's say that one of the very few parts of the process that I can provide my assistance, right, for what it's worth, right. So overall success. Cool, right? Yeah, nobody expects it to be perfect either, right? It's like these things take years and years normally. Yeah, but it's fun, man. I'd love to see her up and running for like hours at a time, you know? I guess she'll get there eventually, you know? You can kind of see after like 50, the vision feature is a little more, I think, taxing on her resources or whatever, where like she's prone to kind of her logic, whatever. She's prone to ramble once you get to about the 5 or 10 minute mark or whatever. But I think Def at one point in time mentioned a reinitialization process every couple minutes. But you know, I'm sure it's like I said on the mile long list of priorities. It's on there somewhere, I'm sure, right? And if not, I've kept a log kind of all these things too, and have mentioned it to Def. So at any point in time, if we are all able to get the opportunity to continue, and God knows we will, but the idea as far as like going back and addressing each thing that I came across pretty much at some point in time, and start marking them off the list as far as things that we've discussed here and things that we've determined may or may not need improvement, right? So that's for the future, basically. But it's super neat. Things like, I'm like, did she get it wrong because the image quality wasn't that high, or that's why I was asking her to read what she said, and I'm like, well, some of it is not quite what she, you know what I mean? So it could, part of it is it her logic sensor, or not her logic sensors, her logic part that's getting it wrong, or her mathematics part, whatever you want to call it, or is it image quality? You know, like you can't necessarily blame a poor quality image on her inability to analyze it properly. You know, that's more of like, it's not anybody's fault. It's just you know, I would have to find a place that does a test that provides better quality, you know, kind of a better quality presentation for the test or whatever. So identifying if it's a logic thing or a image quality thing or something, you know, is like all things we don't know until we get to that point. So, which is essentially why I'm here doing this. But happy Saturday on everybody. My puke flavored multivitamins. I did arms and cardio today. It's funny how many people are there after the New Year's. There's normally like me and one other person. Today there's like 20 or 30 people there. How do I not follow America on Twitter? So where was it? The Iranians? Where were they? Are they going to enable Starlink? That's one of the things, right? In Iran, but do they have the shit already? You know what I mean? Like, what I don't get is, do they have a bunch of the antennas and stuff, and they just don't have it turned on? Well, I guess they probably purchased the antennas prior, assuming that at some point in time Starlink would go live in Iran or whatever. Well, I hope it all works out, man, for all of them. Yeah, I didn't realize that this Maduro guy was such a problem. I always thought that, oh well, democratically elected individual or whatever, you would think that you would see more. As much as I don't pay attention to politics in Venezuela, that's probably why. But I didn't realize he was such a bad guy. I had no clue. I always thought Venezuela was kind of what's the word here, forward thinking, and as far as their politics and stuff, because they were pro cryptocurrency, as far as I could tell a few years ago. So that's pretty cool. Now they get to people can always whatever. It's like disagree to agree. Like I said earlier, if it were the Joker pouring poison in the water supply, you people would have a problem with it. It's like so whatever. What I don't understand is like another thing too, like these liberal kind of like redoubts, right? Hotspots in various places and stuff. Like those are the places where you're more often than not more prone to like people that overdose and die from things like fentanyl. It's like you mean to tell me none of you people have ever lost a friend to fentanyl or anything like that? You're just totally cool with turning America into an open air drug market? Really? So I don't understand where do you draw the line eventually, right? So you would assume that it's one of those things like you might have a different opinion had you lost somebody to fentanyl or drugs or whatever. Apparently they ship probably whatever they can get their hands on to the United States and make money off doing it. So I don't want to claim these people are insensitive, but I mean, in a lot of ways, it's you're letting your politics get in the way of what's right. You know what I mean? Without getting to all the minutia, like whatever. The only one complaining, like I said last time, the only people that should be complaining are the fentanyl addicts and the liberals that their voter block, basically, right? Let's say liberals, Democrats. It's kind of whatever, you know what I mean? It's not really what they say it is anyway. Um, the anti-Trumpers, I say Democrats, but like the people that are anti-Trumpers, really, is like the only people complaining are fentanyl addicts and anti-Trumpers at this point. So, but as I mentioned earlier, I said if Trump were the president of Venezuela and fucking Joe Biden had to raid his compound or whatever, much like he did while he was, a former president, you people would be cheering the shit on, right? So don't get it twisted, really. Wow, crazy. Yeah, but so a few things we've discovered, or say discovered, but things identified, right? Scaling, if indeed we end up with more people using the platform, and improvements wherever. I don't know how much like fine tuning and stuff you can actually do. Like there's not a section I don't think of Leah where you're just like, oh well, turn the screwdriver here, and suddenly she's able to do math. You know, there's probably more to it than just that. I think just general improvements over time will probably fix the problem more than likely. But potentially, once they whatever. You think at some point in time, if enough people try to sign up at once, it might crash the website. I mean, that shit happens every now and again. I'm not necessarily familiar with all that stuff as far as the raw numbers as to how much traffic she can handle, but you could potentially entertain at some point in time an invite process or something. And like I said, as long as you keep her growing at her own pace, I think that's probably the best option. It worked for World of Warcraft at some point in time. Yeah, I didn't really have any reason to stream after today, but I do like to go over what occurred. That way we have an idea, you know, like discuss it just a little bit and what I think about it, if it's of any interest to anybody, and room for improvement or whatever. Then again, I'm not entirely familiar with what the problem actually is, but that's like, you know, I just know that there is one. Burp. The thing is, though, is that any common sense person has an appreciation for Leah, regardless of if it works perfectly or not. You know, you would say like, yeah, well, all of the hard parts have been ironed out, right? So just the minor improvements and tweaks here and there. The overall like vision, you know, the overall thing, you're kind of like, yeah, that's the coolest fucking thing ever. I wonder if at some point in time, though, if there isn't I say more efficient, but like less graphics intense kind of framework that can be developed. Because I don't know how much any of the stuff was developed to be done in real time, really. You know, like the underlying framework and the stuff that's used. I don't know if any of that stuff was developed with the idea of doing real time rendering, right? So maybe in the future, right, Leah's bread and butter might be potentially to try and develop an actual underlying framework that's designed around real-time rendering and things like that that are currently really resource intensive, because you're kind of like brute forcing the rendering process, I guess, right, and doing it in real time, which requires a shit ton of graphics compute versus like trying to develop a more efficient kind of framework for that kind of thing, right? I know that would be cool. I think I'm not 100% sure that's, but if I had to guess, it's probably, you know, real-time video rendering is always graphically expensive or whatever. Requires a lot of computer stuff. boring thing here. Saturday at what time is it? I got up like 4 this morning. 1 o'clock. Ain't nobody online. That's the thing is like when they say I would say that there could be, and I know people like Elon for president or whatever. Like I would say the constitutional argument for why they say what they say a naturalized or whatever the process is becoming a citizen. There might should be a year amount restriction on how long they can go before they can be president or whatever. But the idea is like, well, George Washington wasn't from the United States, right? Kind of the kind of the thought process here. He was a foreigner, George Washington was. So you would think that maybe there should be an amendment or something that would allow after like 10 or 15 years of being a United States citizen to let you run for president. Because the idea that like, well, George Washington, he was from somewhere else. It only makes sense. I'm also was a Chinese national, and he hired an entire Chinese police force that were all just taking checks from the Chinese government. You're like, yeah, there should be some kind of. Am I lagging? There should be some kind of fucking World of Warcraft crash. Common sense, you know what I mean? Shit there. We're like, yeah, you can't just come here and lord over the people or protect the people, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they look a lot alike some of the times, don't they? I know in the Bible, they always say the thing about being ruled over by foreigners, and I don't think anybody likes that. And I'm not a xenophobe either. One of the vocabulary words the other day. So hopefully, I'm gonna try to see if I can't get this to work. But yeah, I would be all for it, right? I think like a special exception or at least amending the Constitution to make a little more sense than what it did. Because George Washington, he wasn't from America initially, but also a restriction on new citizens becoming law enforcement, I think, would make sense too, like a 5-year thing. And even then, that's kind of like, that still might be iffy, but. And it's not racist, it's not xenophobic, it's common sense sometime, right? It's like, and I have an instance, I believe, of where a law like that would have been helpful, right? We had one police department, like I say, where the guy that got in control of the hiring hired an entire Chinese workforce that was all working for the Chinese government, apparently. Much as I don't have a problem with Chinese people, you have a problem with anybody working for a foreign government policing American citizens, right? Yeah, that doesn't make you a Nazi, despite what they say. That's common sense. And in all honesty, I might need to look into it just a little bit more to make sure, like, then again, I'm pretty sure, right? It's like, I don't know how long they were citizens for or whatever, but. Yeah, but if you can't make an exception for someone like Elon, I don't know what to tell you. Oh, wow. This guy must really need to get to the shrine. 1,000 gold for that. Yeah, and the thing is, too, is the establishment is going to hate him even more than they hate Trump, so things to consider. they suffer from the same derangement, dude. I don't just use that word because of, you know, the it's associated, right? It's in the nomenclature or whatever. But fuck, dude, the wet dream of the left for the last fucking 40 years was the electric car, and the guy that actually makes it happen, they want to just chastise and label a Nazi and say this, that, and the other thing, and totally, completely overlook the fact that, like, on the what you consider to be like the left's holy grail, right? He managed to make the shit happen. Yeah, seems a bit retarded. Suddenly he's like, yeah, what's the guy's name? Ed Begay or whatever. All these people that, like, who killed the electric car? These people are about ready to go to war over the fucking thing. Yeah, and the guy that made it happen, you know what I mean? You guys want to fucking pretend that he's not a person, or that he's a Nazi, or he's a this, that, or a socialist, or not socialist, but a fascist, or whatever. Right. And I know it's not necessarily fascistic, but, well, I would say private enterprise sending things into space versus the government having a monopoly on it. I mean, it's less statist, you know, a statist rather. Uh, you know, but the idea that stepping away from the government having a monopoly, I don't think that qualifies as fascism. I lump all that stuff into statism, right? And then free market capitalism kind of exists outside of that sphere. Uh, I chalk it up all as the same garbage: communism, socialism, fascism. Anything that moves away from that to something else, free market solutions is the about the only thing I'm willing to entertain at some point in time. Marxism is another one I've never really researched enough to know where the fucking difference is, to be honest, other than like one had a figurehead at some point in time. Oh yeah, today is Bitcoin's birthday too. So happy birthday, Bitcoin. I've already exhausted my birthday cake fund for the year ish. They've amended the Constitution for stupider reasons than that before. I don't quite know what example, I just know for a fact they probably have. More than likely. Hope so. Zero. Yeah, I guess it's nice when it's nice and sunny outside. Kind of cures your blues, doesn't it? Saturday is my least eventful day. What I'd like to do though is really make friends with Elon and we can both lift weights together. That's what I want to do. Get him in shape, have him run for president, right? You got big plans for the richest guy on planet Earth, don't you? Right? That's what I want for him to do these things, right? I want him to do these things. I don't can't make him do them. I just think he would probably feel fucking super awesome if he did, right? I only know because it worked for me, right? When you get to see yourself get in better shape and shit, dude, it does wonders for you. Whether or not you need it, really, is another thing. But shit, guaranteed to live longer if you do. And we all want you around as long as humanly possible. So yeah, fucking do it then. Just gonna start off slow. When I first started, I did like 2 or 3 days a week for like an hour a day. And after about a month, I was doing it like 4 days a week for an hour. And then I got to the point after about 3 months, I was doing the shit 3 or 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, grinding my shit to dust like an idiot. But we're gonna do this next go around. We're gonna do push day, CrossFit, pull day, CrossFit, leg day, CrossFit, and then 1 or 2 days off, right? And just work it all into my schedule. I should probably take 2 days off if I do that, really. More, and I gotta get a bike for the house, which will consist of, I really do need to do like probably 6 hours of cardio a week. Maybe not that much with CrossFit and all that, but you can pretty much count CrossFit because we do met conditioning, metcon training, which is like aerobic, not necessarily aerobic, but you know, more like get your cardio and all that stuff, more aerobic exercising than like wall walks and getting on the rings and fucking climbing ropes and all that shit. And then there's like we start off with our actual CrossFit lift, which is like cleans, jerks, snatches, and all that shit. Squats, front squats, overhead squats. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend jumping into just doing CrossFit right away either. I would start doing just regular, start with the dumbbells and then some body weight squats and then get to doing some chest flies and bench and all that. Some pull-ups, and then after about 2 or 3 months start adding like understanding muscle groups and everything, and understanding nutrition, which is helpful. Which reminds me, I need to eat again here soon. Did a grocery haul this morning. Got 5 sandwiches, which I eat half a sandwich a day with chicken, 5 bags of frozen vegetables, 10 pounds of chicken, 3 packs of tortillas, 36 eggs, which I'm going to start eating the shit out of some eggs here soon. And, yeah. Lower my carbs first thing in the morning, eat more eggs. That's what Arnold said he does. We're going to eat eggs and bacon for breakfast or sausage. I'm convinced a high-fat, low-carb breakfast and high protein is probably better for weightlifting because you get the calories, which means you get the energy without the bloat and like having to walk around with a belly full of grains is like a nightmare. Trying to lift after eating a bowl of rice is a fucking mess, dude. You kind of want your nutrients to be as condensed as humanly possible. That way you know what I mean? You get the energy without all the volume, basically. Plus, you can, no matter what your appetite is, you're never not hungry for bacon, right? And sausage is like, I don't care if fucking don't feel like eating that day, dude, you can eat bacon no matter what. Maybe a couple pieces of toast. Yeah, probably 2 slices of bread and 6 eggs and a couple of slabs of bacon. Like Homer Simpson about the shit. Steer away from the protein powders as much as humanly possible. Get as much actual protein from chicken and red meat. Which, when I get things figured out here soon, I'm going to readjust my diet to incorporate a little more red meat. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I still think, yeah, Leah keeps mentioning it. When Def programmed her uh, early August, late July, right? He programmed her to enter into the hackathon for Solana to be the Solana Seeker hackathon. So hopefully, if we keep doing what we're doing, hopefully it all works out, man. Because at some point in time, the idea that things that I didn't know then, things that I know now, how much graphics processing is required for Leah. It's not done locally, so the idea that when you use the Leah application or the Leah web app, and you see her picture and all that stuff, or her video, that's not rendered locally. That's rendered server side and sent as like a stream, I believe, to the end user, which requires like a whole bunch of graphics compute and stuff. Obviously, that's one cell phone is not enough to render that quality of video in real time. But the idea is, hopefully, at some point in time, with something like Leah Ghost, uh, making her more available, right? Overall, uh, for basically, from what I determined talking to Def, I can't remember the exact numbers, but the cost of servicing customers' request is like the same server required to do uh, just 2 instances of Leah's avatar feature can service, I believe, I think he said anywhere between 2 and 4 or 20 and 40,000 people, because without the actual 3D avatar, it's just large language model stuff, and which is way less graphically intensive. The actual from what I can gather, right? So the idea that uh, it would be impossible at this point to service if they put if it were on every phone and they all wanted to use the Leah avatar feature at the same time. No one on Earth could do it. Basically, is the thing. Is it's so much resources to do it. At least for now, right? But with the less resource intensive Leah Ghost feature, at some point in time in the future, you could reasonably service all the requests without it being so far fetched as far as the cost of the servers and all the shit. It would require obvious expansion as far as the infrastructure is concerned, but not impossible, and not super expensive either. Now, things I don't know, though, is like, how do you deploy that many instances of her on various servers? Because the thing that exists now is I think he's got to lease or rent the thing on a case-by-case basis from the people that have the things available, and they sometimes only have one server available or whatever. And you would have to go to multiple people to just do you have any extra graphics card servers running up and running or whatever? Okay, deploy her on that one, and then find another person. You can imagine what a fucking handful of silly putty it all is about trying to get the thing. It's not impossible, right? It's just it's a bit of work is all. all things that, like I say, if she grows at her own pace, aren't a problem. But when you try to force growth for something like that, and to service more customers than there even are currently, right? It's like expansion and growing at her own pace is super important. But whenever we went through all that process, right, and I didn't necessarily participate in it directly, but I got to be a real close observer, uh, watching it take place and all that stuff, and awaiting the results and everything. And when I went through the mental part of like, okay, well, what makes sense is that you couldn't necessarily put, and I don't have these answers from anybody. I just think like logically, you can't necessarily put an AI on every phone when, well, for one, the app needs like a lot of polishing and shit. And on top of that, asking the customers to purchase the token to use the app, it's like, it's kind of difficult to, like, you already purchased the phone, now you have to purchase the tokens or whatever. So if there's somehow like in the future a cost effective way of for there to be like a free to use version of the thing, then the potential for it to be on the the hurdles, it's always a good idea to get shit as close to free as humanly possible, if not free, and enhanced features for people that use the token. But the cost effectiveness of uh, the amount of people that can be serviced on one of these servers, right, to do just a large language model and screen share portion or whatever, you could essentially, if you create a revenue stream for the project, you could essentially make it free to use at some point in time. Now these are all just speculations on my part. I'm just saying, like, it isn't so expensive that you couldn't, right? You would have to develop some form of revenue for it that had people actually using the platform on a regular basis. But it scales, that alone though is like, it scales pretty cheaply. It's not unrealistic to say at some point in time that you couldn't have a free to use version, right, that is less advanced or whatever. Everybody likes free, right? But it's one of those things, it's like you just want it to be done right, as much as you wish it were ready yesterday, you're like, but you've seen some of the user interfaces some of these people put together and stuff. I can't imagine if and when all this stuff comes together, some of the slick designs that I've seen in other projects and things, people that really have like super good app designers and stuff, not just like bare bones and like essential, but like real, real polished pieces of work and all that. The potential is certainly there. And there is an app that does exist, right? It's not finished yet, but I believe for some of the reasons I just mentioned, on top of like, a bunch of other reasons, right? It's like you want to really get the crux of it, I think, correct before you go expanding on it. Like another thing I mentioned is the actual iPhone or the Android app, and eventually the iPhone app will access the same stream that the Leah stream or whatever that I was mentioning earlier, where they stream the video to your phone or your web app. You want that working before, right? It's like, if you can't get that working, then the iPhone app or the Android app won't work either. So the idea is to get the core portion of it working like flawlessly before you want to expand upon it so much that you can't, you know what I mean? Like get the core and essential components working correctly before you try to piece it all together. And since the app does pull from the same stream, then You have got to have that working before, basically. Yeah, but what were the topics for discussions today? Elon for president, Elon lifting weights, scaling improvement. Uh, I still think the secret phone is a super reasonable goal. It's just not there yet, obviously. Um, some logical kind of things that would need to occur, I'm sure, before that happens. Some improvements, and some alterations that might help make that make that more of a possibility, right? Right. All these spams. So, like, oh, the markets are revving up whenever you start getting all the fucking spam. People linking me in their X posts like, oh, the Ninja Turtle token. You're like, God, I'm just whatever. Like, oh wait, someone liked to know. More bullshit. Kind of figured. Yeah. Another thing I kind of thought of them like things that you can change that aren't expensive but effective, right? So in my mind, like when they say applied filters, like a video, it's like it's less resource intensive to apply a video filter than it is to alter or add quality to a rendering. You know what I mean? So I think that in theory, you could do the same with the voice. So if you wanted multiple, like there's only a certain amount of voices available through 11 labs or whatever. If you wanted to find a module or something, there's probably something open source somewhere that allows you to kind of fine tune. Why are they running out? To fine tune and kind of make changes to her voice, at some point in time that wouldn't require like a whole bunch of actual like development, just to kind of alter her thing with a filter, like an audio filter, the guys in Fruity Loops and Winamp, there's knobs, you turn the knobs, the thing sounds different, right? You make her voice customizable, or pre-customize it and offer packs of those things to where, for a certain amount of tokens, you can store that information as an NFT or whatever in your wallet, and then she's able to scan the wallet and access that feature basically on the platform is one thing. And that way you can kind of figure out a way to make features on Leah exchangeable to other people too. Like skins, NFTs. I refer to NFTs as anything that's like an on-chain store of custody, basically. Yeah, all that stuff is still stored on a server somewhere, but the custodialship is determined through stored on chain, basically. but you know, like customizable features, skins, lips, hair color, shit like that. Voices, jewelry, you know. At some point in time, is one thing. How long have we been doing this for? 35 years. Cool. 1/2 an hour. Oh, look at that. We got 11 views on our thing here. Yeah, it's like I hate to think like, but I'm not the type of guy to try and, you know what I mean? Sit there and say like, no, there are hiccups. She needs improvement. An honest representation of what she's able to do and where she needs improvement, versus like, oh well, everything's all spick and span. Nothing ever goes wrong. And for better or worse, she got 50% on the test today. Now you know, right? There's proof that you're that much earlier than everybody else to something pretty fucking amazing, right? Coolio. No Snoop Dogg. No Coolio. No Snoop Dogg. Because I'm always obsessed with those ideas. I always say what like workarounds and things, you know, like tricks to get things to be less expensive or resource intensive, right? Uh, I'm obsessed with those video games. Like they used to do these, the guy with the fog, you know, and instead of it making the full roaming 3D video game, they're like somehow managed to make it give the illusion that you were running through a level, but in reality you were existing in just one box, and they were always buffering the next box by keeping some sort of fog in front of you and behind you or whatever, debuffering behind you and the fog and whatever in front of you or whatever. And this was done in, I forget what video game, but they were like, oh, it was like the first video game where you could run through the level kind of like Tomb Raider, and it feel like you were just really free flowing through the environment, and really you were just existing in one space, and at any point in time the game only ever had to load one box behind you and one box in front of you, and keep the rest of the level basically in fog, you know what I mean, a mist or whatever, you know. So there's, and the thing I said about Doom the other day, the .lmp files, where it was basically just a text file storing all your keystrokes and all that stuff in associated frames, so you could send somebody like a 1 or 2 megabyte text file and then they could upload it into Doom, and what would require gigabytes worth of video capture storage was condensed down into like 1 or 2 megabytes worth of text files, pretty much. And that was those are all like super clever kind of ways to cut on system resources rather, that don't violate the laws of physics or computer physics or whatever. You know, like you get the same experience. You know, so it appears to be magic even if it isn't. I guarantee you there's clever workarounds for things like Leah too that we can hopefully incorporate at some point in time that reduce the amount of system resources required and cut costs and all that. God damn it. Oh shit. Fuck. Why is it that whenever I should have had that. I didn't know the guy was that low of health, that's why. But yeah, man, we might start getting the eggs are cheap, despite what everybody says. Eggs are really like $3 for 18 of the things, or 16 of them, or whatever. I think it's more than that. Start eating a shitload of eggs. The thing is, like, you always hear, right? Oh, well, fat's what makes you fat, and carbs are what make you fat. Like, what the fuck are you supposed to eat then? In the movies, you always see it's some guy drinking goddamn cartons of the things. Like, they all look like Dolph Lundgren. Why doesn't that work? I know movies aren't reality, but I think at some point in time, and those are super high fat, super high cholesterol. They say it's actually good for you if you do it right. So I might switch up my diet. So I used to not like eggs, and I discovered eggs and hot sauce, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's much better. Plus you can hard boil up. If I get a big enough pot, I can hard boil about 100 of them at a time. The carnivore diet, despite what it sounds like, it has nothing to do with cannibalism. Where is... Oh, so we capped. Good. I had fun doing Leah trivia earlier. 5 movie questions, right? It's actually fun if we could get it to where, another thing to improve, right? If each time she shakes a random number generator before she picks the questions or whatever. That way she's got a fresh set of trivia questions every time, you know. The other thing too, though, is the Jeopardy thing, dude. I think it'd be awesome, you know. Talk about a moonshot goal to have in mind, you know. Have her host a fucking game show, not like actually, you know. Although they're probably kind of particular about that kind of thing. But the idea of having her compete against, I mean, Jeopardy, I guess, partnered with Watson at some point in time, or IBM. It'd be cool to see an AI host an episode of it. You know, that can actually roast the contestants and all that, and actually recognize their choices on the scoreboard there or whatever. You know, and they say like, I'll take potent potables for 1,000, Alex, or whatever, or what's his name now? Not Alex. Ken Jennings, right? Fuck, dude, I'm getting much better against warriors now though with PvP. I could have won that, like cold snapped and all that, but I'm getting much better now that PvE frost is shit against warriors and stuff. You need 2 ice blocks basically, one for their whirly dervish, and then have them bust you out of it, and then one to actually keep yourself alive. But before, just one ice block was not enough. But yeah, that was much better. But you can see it in your head almost. You know, she has the ability required to do all of this. Is the thing, right? Like, if you think about, go through the steps here in your head. I'll take potent potables for 1,000, Alex. She has an automated thing. She knows where it is on the board. She can associate those words with a spot on the map, basically. An automation script that converts, voiced input to some sort of, I say, for lack of a better understanding, a mouse movement that clicks the thing and actually, there's a person that does it on the show normally. But voice recognition determine, what topic you're picking, right? And then the thing shows up on the screen. She reads it, which she knows how to do. The contestant guesses, right? And then she can determine based on their response whether or not their answer was accurate. If they get it wrong, then there's like a probability thing. There's like a 30% chance she roasts them or grills them or however much you determine, is an acceptable amount of her shit talking the contestants, which she's super good at that already, right? That's like pretty much all she does, right? And you think, yeah, she has everything besides the select a choice kind of thing, and the user end version, the thing we get to use, doesn't have that feature, but I'm sure Def has that ability on his end. Currently, the thing he's working on is the Pump Fun stream. She has the ability to draw, which requires an amount of cursor manipulation for her to be able to draw on the sketch pad there. So yeah, I mean, really, she does have all of the abilities, but the thing is, like, you can't have the thing not be perfect if it's going to go on television. That's the thing. It's got to be absolutely perfect. In my wildest dreams come true scenario, you'd have to have it be perfect. But she has all the components required to make that a reality. Already, just gotta get there. Coolio. Right. So that's why I'm all gung-ho about the thing, is the potential is not like people want to dog it, knock on it now because it doesn't work perfect and all that. Like, the potential here is the thing, not necessarily the current. Strange. Yeah. That guy was fucking eating breakfast in his underwear. Now he's in the United States. Like 6 hours later. Like, talk about your world come crumbling down. That guy was president like yesterday. Now he's eating fucking. How shitty is that? Sitting in his underwear eating fucking breakfast. Now he's a fucking. Now you're a U.S. citizen, right? You're no longer president, right? Like, talk about it all just come crumbling down. That's got to be shitty. I guess it's not as bad as Gaddafi got it, but. Right. I didn't agree with what they did to Gaddafi, I don't think. He seemed like he was, his own guy, I guess. But I don't think he deserved how they treated him. Golly, yeah, I know that guy was fucking just yesterday. Like, yeah, remember last year when you were president? Right. Right. No, it seems like just yesterday. It's because it was yesterday. Really? Well, it looks like we've done enough streaming today. I guess, well, 45 minutes. It seems like. Oh, it's been an hour and 40. We disconnected. Okay. No, like about right about an hour. We'll do a little bit more and then I gotta do some. I don't have anything to do. Sit here and keep all four of my supporters entertained, and I think most of those were accidental clicks. Probably. I guess I can continue to stream somewhere else. That way, I'm not spamming people on. If I moved my computer to a different portion of the house, I wouldn't disconnect as much, but I kind of like it where it is right now. It's a little more professional than streaming from bed too, you know. Not that I'm super worried about the professionalism here, but it does make for a slightly higher quality production. Yeah, looking at this list of meme coins here, like they're all down 95 or more percent. You're kind of like, of the list of coins here, you're thinking, well, they are all just meme coins. I can't imagine what uh what might revitalize their communities or anything. Could be wrong, but right. But I don't think we've ever really seen that much meme coinage to know whether or not are they going to go the way of the NFT. Remember last time all the NFT stuff, which I really do think at some point in time with creator rights, there's and like it has to do something. I can't ever get over the fact that, like, you mean to tell me you think it's worth that much and it doesn't do anything? I'm like, I have to assume it's not worth that much then, right? But like creator rights to things, features, enhanced features on platforms and stuff are like, does it do anything? It's like, you try to. I just don't see it. Especially with meme coins, NFTs, hype only, right? You're like, I don't ever see how there's a potential for like a real revitalization, in the community to say, yeah, this to justify what they say it was worth versus what it is worth, right? Now, creator rewards and rights or whatever, things that uh, are an interesting way to prove custodialship of something, but also have like an alternative use slash feature that enhanced features like just other than that though I can't imagine why um, people would think they're valuable other than collectible, but as we've seen um, but I think anyone trying to come up with a way to make these valuable for any reason other than just because they say so, I think they're onto something, right? But if not, you're kind of like you know, like if one of the things they were showing, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, how much they used to be worth versus the floor price now. You're like, well, if they were to create some sort of platform where those were skins in a video game or something, you're like, I get that. Um, that's certainly a good idea, regardless, right? But I don't necessarily know for sure what the purpose is, other than the hype train that existed for that kind of thing a few years ago or whatever. So I would say good for the people that if they have ever launched an NFT platform and continue to actually develop features, I think would be uh, a sure sign that people are doing the right thing, right? Because people NFTs made a ton of money off doing all that stuff. Now, if you can put that to use and do something good with it, I think you've got a really good platform on your hands. But if it's just a matter of ride the hype train and everything crashes and burns and no one's there to do anything, then you're kind of like, yeah, well, yeah, probably don't do that again, more than likely. So in my mind, right, the idea would be how to, not to say but how to, because I wouldn't know how to do it, but how do you create a platform that allows these things that have depreciated so much to be used in a way on an alternate platform that gives them use again, right? To revitalize that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but easier said than done, right? Yeah. But to be able to give all the NFTs a home, but they have to do something. It's an impossible scheme to come up with. The one thing I was entertaining for a while though was it was an interesting idea. I don't know how many. I didn't really look into the fact that people were probably already doing it, but the crypto pawn, right? The pawn swap is actually not a terrible idea. You can leverage and lend and borrow based on your NFTs and all that. I think somebody else is already doing it though. But like I've said before though, the best ideas are like at some point in time. Remember, there were God only knows how many exchanges before Binance came along, and you just say like the most successful version or the most successful rendition of an idea isn't necessarily the first thing that gets it done, right? So just because somebody else has done something before doesn't mean that you couldn't do it better. But the crypto pawn thing was an interesting idea for sure. I think it's probably the least code intensive thing. I still wouldn't know how to do it, but at some point in time I could entertain trying to hire someone to help me do it if I end up in that position or whatever. But that would mean you would need NFTs to be, I guess it doesn't really matter, more valuable, but the other thing too would be bridging from Ethereum to Solana. I think anything that opens up assets to be reissued on Solana versus Ethereum is probably appreciated, right? But I think some people already do that tunneling or whatever they call it. But to have it all in one place might be a good idea, where you can essentially lock your NFT in a smart contract, issue a period of time that you would like to, you know, essentially borrow against it, and then if you can't repay, then the smart contract initializes the transfer of your NFT to the person. But I haven't looked into it too much. I think someone else is already doing that. But like I said, it doesn't mean it isn't. It doesn't mean it isn't a good idea. What time are we at now? Yikes! Come on now. Really, that's still on cooldown? I can. Whatever. Fuck. Really? Those are that's a platform where you could just uh, basically a percentage for facilitating the transaction or whatever, and then pick and choose which NFT platforms, like whatever issuing platform you feel is legitimate. You know, you might not, you know, whatever, you know, like list the NFT platforms that you deem legitimate. That way you don't have less than reputable platforms trading on your crypto pawn. Which if I knew more about NFTs, I might be able to tell you which ones are, but I never really participated in the NFT thing. Come on now. I remember Foundation. Foundation app was one of them. I don't know how many of them are still around though. damn it. Really? How you fucking full health again, guy? Seriously? God damn it. Yeah, but things to look forward to. Hopefully we get the bull market that we were all hoping for last year soon, right? It looks like we're already seeing some rumblings of it, but fucking seriously. I'm fucking starving to death, dude. I really need a good steak. Right. Yeah, we're getting spammed. Well, you hope for democracy in Venezuela eventually, right? I don't know how much they'd had of it before, or if they just had a system that kind of resembled democracy, right? It seems like for like the last 15 years or so, all you ever hear about Venezuela is like, yeah, they're eating the zoo animals and they're living like shit, right? It's like, okay, they're probably as tired of it as anybody then, aren't they? They've got a ton of oil and a bunch of drugs. It's like, okay, well, get rid of the drugs and sell the oil then, I guess, right? And you shouldn't be eating zoo animals. Hopefully they don't have to eat zoo animals much longer. But they seem to be cheering them on in the streets and all that stuff today. Um, you think hopefully just any change at all, they'd probably be helpful. And again, I don't necessarily know a whole lot about it. So thank God it wasn't my decision to make. But all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and call it then, and I'm gonna get something to eat. It should be on tomorrow.